Well, good evening and good morning to all of you with us right now. My name is Ryan Fernandez, and in behalf of Syzygy, we're so happy that you could join us for this interesting talk that we're having. We're coming to you live from at least two different time zones, US Pacific Coast and also Philippines. So wherever you are and wherever you're watching from, we hope that you're well, that you're healthy, and that you're safe. But tonight, and we're going to be discussing a very interesting talk on health. Now, before I get to that and before I pass it on to our MC, I'm just the act before the act. I'd like to introduce you to Syzygy, which is our community. We are a community of professionals from various backgrounds spread across globally. And we believe in improving ourselves, in improving our lives through three aspects. One is through optimal health, which is about nutrition and exercise and being healthy, and uh, which is very important right now, but also optimal wealth. We also empower people in entrepreneurship and business. And lastly, through personal growth and development, which we call optimal self. So it's a very holistic approach to success and living a more fulfilling life. But right now, we're going to talk about optimal health. So I'm going to pass the floor to our MC, Jeremy, who's going to be giving us a bit of a background about our speaker. And Jeremy is coming to us live from Chicago. So without any further ado, we have Jeremy Viado. Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Ryan. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone here in the US, and good morning or good afternoon there in the Philippines. I'm Jeremy. I'm an IT professional from Chicago. I'm very thankful for Ryan for introducing me, but I'm not the speaker. I'm going to introduce you to our main speaker, who is a doctor. It would be Dr. Ricco Santos, MD. He is specializing in family medicine. He is married with 3 kids. He has 30 years clinical practice in practicing in Marikina and Taguig. He is a graduate of UST in chemistry and medicine. He's both licensed on those fields and studies. He is a wellness coach, an advocate for reversing type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome. So let's all welcome our partner, Dr. Ricco Santos. Hi, Dr. Ricco.
Hi, thank you. Thank you and for that kind introduction. So I am also part of the business community, CCG Philippines, led by the founders, co-founders, Ms. Olivia Fernandez Bernabe and Ryan Fernandez, without whom I would not be here in front of you now. No, they were instrumental in getting me out of the cocoon. No, I usually talk to patients within the confines of a small clinic only. I usually don't talk in public. No, public speaking is not my cup of tea, so to speak. But with their help and with their prodding and giving me the platform to speak a message of hope for people with syndrome X, to which type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, no, Alzheimer's disease, etc. belongs. No, So without further ado, let me share my screen. So can you see my screen? And can you hear me clearly? Okay, so let's begin, no? So just some disclaimer, no? This is for medical information only and should not be construed as your personal medical advice. So you have to go back to your healthcare providers for more detailed health advice, no? So as the MC have said, I am a practitioner in family medicine for the past 30 years here in Marikina and Taguig. And I'm a strong advocate of reversing type 2 diabetes naturally and also on weight management. No? The two most common conditions of syndrome X or metabolic syndrome. Yeah, my clinic practice in Marikina. No, this is what I'm passionate about. No, to teach people how to not need medicine or to reduce it at a minimum. No? So let's just have some quiz first. No, do you have more fat around your belly? Do you have high blood pressure or history of heart disease in the family? Have you taken these drugs before and many others? No? Have you had high levels of triglycerides or low levels of the HDL cholesterol or so-called good cholesterol? Have you been prescribed these medications, statins and fenofibrates? Have you had high levels of SGPT or ALT? Or have you been diagnosed with fatty liver? Do you have high levels of uric acid? Diagnosed with gout, the very painful arthritic syndrome? Been prescribed allopurinol, febuxostat, the newer kind of drug, and for acute attacks, colchicine? Have you been frustrated by failed attempts to lose weight with a low-fat diet? No? Up and down, yo-yoing diet nyo? No? Do you have patches of dark-colored skin or skin tags around your neck? No? Below your breast, your armpits, no? Your inguinal area? No? If you had those, no? Answer yes. Do you constantly crave sugary or starchy foods? Have you been diagnosed with prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, or gestational diabetes, the diabetes of pregnancy, prescribed with these kinds of medications, and actually many, many more, no? There's so many medications for diabetes. Do you have infertility problems, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or for men, erectile dysfunction? Do you retain water easily? No? Do you have pedal edema, no? in both legs? No, when you press your skin, your finger sinks. No, do you get fatigued easily? Tired all the time? Do you have brain fog? No, sometimes confused where you put things. No, forget. No, forget things. No, when, where, how, temporarily. If you answered yes to 2 or more of these questions, you most likely have syndrome X, or what we call now as insulin resistance syndrome, no? Or metabolic syndrome, no? It was initially called syndrome X because they still did not know what causes it, but now we know it's about insulin, no? And it can be objectively measured, no? By 5 parameters, no? Your waist circumference, fasting glucose, blood pressure, triglycerides, the good cholesterol, and whether you're taking pharmaceutical medications for these conditions, no? Waist circumference should be 40 inches. Fasting glucose of not more than 100 milligrams, or hemoglobin A1C, the average of glucose for the past 3 months, no, should be less than 5.7. Blood pressure should be less than 130 systolic or 85. Currently, there's a new criteria for high blood pressure, no, but this is not yet being used in the Philippines, no. Currently, in the US and Europe, they're now using the 120 systolic and 80 diastolic cut off, no. If you're over that, you're considered already with hypertension, no. Triglycerides should be lower than 150. Good cholesterol should be greater, 40 and 50 for females, no. And metabolic health is best understood as a state of balance the body maintains between storing and burning fat for energy. Once this is disrupted, your health is adversely affected, no. These are the 5 markers. Plus, the individual should be under no pharmaceutical medication to be considered metabolically healthy. And this is the problem, insulin, no? In syndrome X, or insulin resistance, our pancreas is actually producing too much of insulin, no? Overproduction of insulin. Just like that, no? We need insulin, but we need just minute amounts of insulin to be healthy. When we are overproducing insulin, we become metabolically unhealthy. Why? Because hormones, just like any other hormones, we only need minute amount of it, no? An analogy of that is your thyroid hormone, no? When we get overproduction of thyroid hormone, we get hyperthyroidism, goiter, no? Graves' disease, no? When we don't produce enough of thyroid hormone, we also get disease, no? Hypothyroidism, just like with cortisol, no? Just like with aldosterone, no? Any hormone that's overproduced and underproduced causes disease, no? It's the same thing with insulin, where when we're producing too much, we get insulin resistance, no? When we're not producing enough, we actually get type 1 diabetes, no? Type 1 diabetes differentiates with type 2 because type 1, you don't have enough of insulin. With type 2, you're actually producing too much, no? And why do we develop insulin resistance, no? Because we are eating carbs to over tolerance, no? So the body has to secrete more and more of insulin to normalize the blood pressure, no? An analogy for that is like drinking alcohol or taking sleeping pills, no? When in the first time that you drink alcohol, you easily get drunk, no? But as you drink more every day consistently, even if you consume 1 case of beer, no, you're not drunk anymore, no. Your body develops tolerance or resistance to the substance. Same with sleeping pills. The first time you take it, 1/2 tablet, you get to sleep easily. But as you use every day, every night, you need more and more of the medications to put you to sleep. So that's how our body reacts to any substance, no? We develop tolerance, resistance to it because our body is trying to protect us from the harmful effects of the substance. And no one dies from insulin resistance. It's just the vehicle that gets you there, no? Not right away, but slowly. It takes decades before it manifests into a disease. And this is what I'm talking about, the difference between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, no? Type 1 diabetes, you're mas guapo. No, hindi, I'm just joking. With type 1 diabetes, you're using enough of insulin. So you need endogenous or injectable insulin to survive, just like Gary Valenciano in the photo. With type 2 diabetes, you're actually producing too much of insulin. That's the big difference between the two. But they are actually managing almost the same thing, no? Which is very sad, no? This is the consequence of metabolic syndrome or insulin resistance. No? Obesity, heart disease, lipid problems, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, dementia, or Alzheimer's disease. It's now being called type 3 diabetes, and you become more prone to cancer, and to cancer, infertility, like PCOS, no, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and fatty liver disease actually precedes, no, type 2 diabetes, no. And this is the problem, no? This is what causes insulin levels to rise, no? Too many sugars in our diet in the form of simple sugars, no? Even complex carbohydrates can easily jack up your blood sugar levels because right in our mouth, the enzyme amylase in our saliva converts the carbohydrates, the starch, already as glucose. No? Too many proteins in the diet, especially when we remove the fats. No, when we eat lean proteins, no? we usually request the market to remove the fats from our meat. No? We should eat it with the fat. No? And also, insulin resistance or high levels of insulin happens because we are frequent snackers, or we at night while watching TV, Netflix, no, while watching YouTube, etc., etc. This leads to spiraling levels of insulin, and eventually we become insulin resistant. No, yan ang consequence. No, at the bottom, fructose is part of table sugar, no, and also mga processed foods, no, cause insulin resistance. And another contributory factor are high proteins, fattening carbohydrates like starches from grains and root crops. Also, stress can contribute to high insulin levels, leading to syndrome, no? And eventually to the diseases of civilization, which is called the non-communicable diseases, no? It's actually the biggest pandemic happening now, no? Type 2 disease and obesity. it kills more individuals than the current pandemic. And carbohydrates gives the most insulin response. Protein moderately and fats almost flat, no? Ang insulin response. And when we eat a high carb diet with frequent snacking, no, our insulin levels become higher and higher, no, from the basal original levels, no. It becomes usually 5 times higher than the normal. So insulin resistance happens. That's the consequence, the progression to insulin resistance. No, we can actually be insulin resistant and not fat. No, you can be as thin as I am, but still be insulin resistant. No, I've actually experienced gout twice. No, and because I used to take iced tea, bottomless iced tea every time we eat in the restaurant. No, and so I've experienced gout twice in my life, very painful. Yeah. So this is what happens now when we eat excess carbs and frequent eating, our blood sugars goes up, and as a consequence, our pancreas will secrete insulin to normalize that. No, but when we do that frequently, we develop fatty liver and developing insulin resistance in the liver first. No, why? Because it's trying to protect us from the high insulin levels. No, too much insulin can actually kill us. It can we can develop insulin shock. No, we can die fast from insulin shock. So our body is trying to protect us from that. No, so eventually, but high levels of insulin can already do damage to our eyes, our nerves, our kidneys, our arteries, our brain, the liver, and the pancreas. No, in spite of having normal blood sugars. No, it's actually the insulin that's causing the damage more. No? And then eventually, when the pancreas cannot produce enough insulin anymore, although the insulin levels are still high, but it's no longer enough to normalize blood sugar due to beta cell dysfunction in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, depending, every individual different, then we develop type 2 diabetes. Blood sugar is actually controlled in a very narrow range by our body at less than 100 milligrams per deciliter. With 5 liters of blood, we actually have around 1 teaspoon of sugar circulating in our bloodstream, and the body has to maintain that at that level. Otherwise, we get sick. Too much sugar can get us sick. Too low can also get us sick. And this is the result of too much insulin circulating in the blood due to high blood sugar levels. It is actually the cause of atherosclerosis, the thickening of arteries. And it says so in the Diabetes Care Journal of the American Diabetes Association, that insulin resistance is likely the most important single cause of coronary artery disease. Current mainstream medicine treatment do not ignore insulin levels. We always concentrate on high blood sugar. But both can lead to complications of diabetes. No, when we ignore insulin, we still get complications from diabetes. And it's actually the cholesterol has been demonized as the cause of atherosclerosis, but it's actually a substance used by the body to repair our cells. No, so it's a victim. No, it's not the culprit in atherosclerosis. It's actually insulin and inflammation. No, we need cholesterol many functions, no, as steroid hormones, progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, production of vitamin D, bile acids for fat digestion, etc., etc. So it's the insulin, not the cholesterol. And why should we be concerned? Because we have 100,000 kilometers of blood vessels. Most of them are capillaries, no, from our head to our feet. And we can actually say that insulin resistance and diabetes are an arterial clogging disease. No, it affects all our organ systems. No, you may not get diabetes right away, but you may already develop problems of the heart, problems in your eyes, problems in your kidneys. No, as we are seeing now, no, there's lots of people that don't have diabetes, but they get heart attacks, they get stroke, they get kidney failure, they get glaucoma, they get many conditions. Insulin is actually more than a blood sugar hormone. It irritates amino acid intake into the cells, fatty acids, and it actually promotes cell and tissue growth. This can actually be disadvantageous to us when we are producing too much of it, because if you have tumors or cancer cells already in your body, it can actually promote its growth and metastasis. No, so it's not good to have high levels of insulin. Yeah, it can, as I said, it can lead to hypertension. How can it lead to hypertension? Because insulin signals the kidney to retain more salt and water, no? And also more, if our kidneys retain more uric acid. That's why we can have gout and hypertension, no? It's not the salt, it's not the meat that's causing the conditions. It's actually insulin resistance, no? And as I said, it affects all organ systems because of the blood supply, no? And even our ears and balance can be affected, no? Tinnitus, vertigo, because every organ needs blood supply. And if that's compromised, we get these conditions, no? And promotes yung benign prostatic hypertrophy due to its effect on growth, no? Abnormal growth. As I said, it's not the salt that causes hypertension per se. It's actually the insulin effect on the kidney to retain more salt and water, no? So when you go on a lower carb program, you actually urinate more salt and water. Just like with gout, when you have insulin, high levels of insulin, you retain more uric acid. And actually the sugar, especially the fructose, ramps up your uric acid production. So the combination of sugary foods with a high protein diet is bad for us, no? It's the combinations that's bad. But if you take meat or legumes without too much carbs and sugar, we don't get the condition of gout. So the high blood levels of insulin or hyperinsulinemia is actually the major driver of chronic illness, no? Hiding in plain sight because it's totally ignored, no? By current mainstream medicine, no? They're not testing for it. And type 2 diabetes is more of a disease of insulin rather than glucose, no? Hyperinsulinemia happens before you get hyperglycemia or high blood sugar, 10, 20 years or even 30, 40 years before you get diabetes, no? Every individual is different, no? So this is the usual test for type 2 diabetes, no? The fasting blood sugar, oral glucose tolerance test, and the average of the blood sugar levels, the ADA1C, the average in 3 months, no? If you go more than these values, you are considered a diabetic or pre-diabetic, no? Pre-diabetes actually is not a benign condition, no? Don't get complacent when you're diagnosed with pre-diabetes. You already have insulin resistance by then, no? And when you have insulin resistance, there is already underlying problems in your arteries, no? In your capillaries. And this should be the better test, no? The HOMA-IR, no? Homeostatic assessment of insulin resistance, no? It's taken as a calculation between the fasting insulin and the fasting blood sugar divided by a constant, no? And you can actually get a surrogate, no? Surrogate marker for that from our ordinary blood chemistry, the triglycerides divided with the good cholesterol. If you're less than 2 or equal to 2, you're okay, no? You actually do not have insulin resistance, no? They usually do not, HMOs usually reject this test, no? It's not included in their protocol, no? It's expensive. Here in the Philippines, it costs around 2,000 pesos, no? And it's not available in usual laboratories. You can get it only in tertiary hospitals, no? And type 2 diabetes is a naturally reversible dietary disease. So there is hope for people with type 2 diabetes. It's not a progressive disease. No? It only becomes a progressive disease when we do not address its root cause. So would you eat 22 packets of sugar? We've done that, no? At one time or another in our lives, no? Just like me, drinking several glasses of iced tea, no? And it actually kills you slowly because of empty calories. It drives unhealthy behaviors, feeds our enemies, it creates imbalance in our gut flora, no? Causes fatty liver and cirrhosis, and eventually leading to high insulin levels and insulin resistance, no? It's very addictive, causes massive dopamine release in the brain. It's actually more addictive as cocaine, no? in a study in mice, the mice actually preferred in an addicted mice, no, when given a choice, it actually prefers the sugar, and it causes a vicious cycle, no. You eat more sugar, insulin goes up, and then it goes down again, up again. So it creates a vicious cycle. And it feeds our enemies, especially now that we have a pandemic, no? The virus, the so-called SARS-CoV virus, no? So my usual advice to my COVID patients is to avoid sugary drinks, sugary foods during the course of treatment, no? And maybe even after, no? If they're really into a more healthier goal, no? And it feeds cancer, so because these enemies love simple food. In table sugar, you have your glucose and your fructose, no? This is 50-50. No? The glucose is metabolized by any cell or organ of the body, but fructose is only metabolized in the liver. So if you're eating a lot of it, no, sugary foods and processed foods, your liver is actually overloaded, no? Leading to fatty liver disease and eventually to insulin resistance, no? And there's not much difference between a soda and a beer. In this example, soda can be your carbonated drinks, can be your juices, no? Whether natural or artificial juices, no? So there's not much difference between the two, no? In their contents, no? In their effects in children and in adults, no? Both causes obesity. Central obesity, which is the more bad kind of obesity, central obesity around the belly. But immediate exposure to both in alcohol, it causes intoxication with all these symptoms, no? Palpitation, loss of fine motor control, frequent urination, etc. No? But with exposure to sugar or fructose, no effect on immediate exposure. But chronic exposure, they are both the same. No? Long-term exposure to both can lead to hypertension, problems in the heart, cardiomyopathy or heart attack, myocardial infarction, problems in the liver, the lipid problems, the pancreas, both can cause obesity, fatty liver, no? Insulin resistance, and addiction. And this can lead to cirrhosis of the liver. No? Even if you're not drinking alcohol, but you're taking a lot of sugary drinks, processed foods, mga desserts, too much desserts every after meal, you can actually develop cirrhosis of the liver. Just like my aunt, no? She doesn't drink alcohol, but she likes to take sweet foods, no? After a meal, no? Juices, etc., etc. She actually developed upper GI bleeding, the cause of which is cirrhosis, no? Of the liver. So what happens is when your liver is too scarred, no, it dumps up the blood coming from the intestine. So the blood vessels become engorged and develop varicosities along the line of the blood vessels, including the esophagus. No, when these blood vessels rupture, it causes massive GI gastrointestinal bleeding, no? And my daughter's contemporary in college actually also died from upper GI bleeding at 22 years old due to cirrhosis of the liver. And these are the culprits, no? The curse, processed foods, too much of it and not enough of fiber, omega-3, and micronutrients. No? Sugar, the major culprit. And they are weapons of mass destruction, slowly killing us. And all carbs actually trigger insulin. We don't want the high insulin response carbohydrates. What we want is your low insulin response carbohydrates, mostly composed of vegetables, no, starchy, non-starchy vegetables, nuts, seeds, berries, no, yung avocado, coconut oil or coconut meat, olive oil, butter, ghee, yung non-lean meat, no, fatty fish, shellfish, even your crabs, no, your shrimps, eggs, preferably brown eggs, no? And I have a question for you. Which would you rather have? A full set of legs or sugar? And this is how we treat lifestyle diseases today than non-communicable diseases, no? We treat it by symptoms only, no? High blood pressure, problems in lipids, no? Your cholesterol, your LDL, your triglycerides, no? Your uric acid, your blood sugar. They are actually symptoms of a disease process, which is insulin resistance, no? We are actually treating only the symptoms. That's why we're not getting anywhere, no, with these diseases, no. As doctors usually say to patients that you have to take it as a maintenance drug for the rest of your life, no. Compared it with an infection, no. When you give paracetamol only to an infection like UTI or tonsillitis, you get the fever down, but the disease is still there. So you need antibiotics to get at the root cause, the bacterial infection, to cure the individual. And then later on, after completing the dose, the course of the antibiotics, they can stop it, no? So you're considered cured. But with these lifestyle diseases, you are never cured because you get to take it for life, no? You're not going to get off the medications. That's how we treat lifestyle diseases today. And it's very sad. The root cause is actually insulin resistance. Address the root cause, we treat the disease. We actually cure or even reverse the disease. So they do not alter this process. And these are some of the medications for type 2 diabetes. No? There are some good drugs and there are some very ugly drugs, no? Just like the insulin, the sulfonylureas like glycoside, glipizide, the rosiglitazone, no, etc. This raises, this ugly drug raises insulin, which is the root cause of the problem, no? We should be taking more of the neutral or the newer kinds of medications. But actually, you can actually reduce the medication even with these good drugs now, no? Naturally. But what I usually, if they cannot really totally remove medication, I actually give them metformin, no, or acarbose or some supplements, no, that can help them reduce blood sugar levels, like chromium picolinate, berberine, etc. This is the standard of care for lifestyle diseases, all medications, and the standard American diet that's very high in carbohydrates. They just say to eat less, exercise more, no? But these modalities do not lead to cure or reversal, no? What leads to reversal is actually to keep the insulin low by taking a low-carb, healthy fat diet and doing some intermittent fasting and high-intensity interval training and strength training. This can lead to reversal. And there was actually a TED talk by Dr. Sarah Halberg of Virta Health, years ago, that we can only cure type 2 diabetes or obesity by ignoring the current guidelines. This went viral, actually. And there are many more doctors and experts aside from Dr. Sarah Halberg, like Dr. Jason Fong, Dr. Tim Noakes, Dr. Andreas Einfeld, Ron Rosdale, etc., etc. So this is what I ask my patients. Are you willing to give up the things that are making you sick? If you can, then we can work together. But if he only wants a quick fix, mahirap pagalingin ang individual. He will not get better. He will, even with a normal blood sugar, with medications only, he will actually get worse. He will need more and more medication until his or her doctor will already give him insulin, which actually makes the condition worse. And this I got from a post by Dr. James Nicolan Antonio and Dr. Jason Fong. If you have type 2 diabetes and you haven't been told you can reverse it with diet, you have not been given proper advice. It's a disease caused by food, and it can only be healed by food. Yes, it's that simple. The hard part is your responsibility to do it. It's just like our business, Simple, but it's our responsibility to make a go of it, This is actually the modalities that you have to do to keep insulin levels low. We have to control our intake of carbohydrates, more of the veggies, and some low-carb fruits like berries. We should eat our protein, We eat the protein with the fat, and fill the rest of the calories with fat. Do some intermittent fasting. You can actually start with a 12-hour fasting and 12-hour feeding window. The normal, the usual thing that we did 50 years ago, Then do some high-intensity training with strength training or resistance training. And for those who have been very poor diet, I highly recommend supplementation, especially with our sponsor, Nutrilite. So you don't actually have to go into a very strict low-carb diet. You can start the easier part, Eat a low-carb Mediterranean style of diet, devoid of grains and crops, those that are high carb, Eat a maximum of meals, no snacking. Practice intermittent fasting. The easiest that you can do to start with is a 12-hour fasting window. and 12-hour feeding window with a maximum of 3 meals. Do some brisk walking, no? Start with low intensity exercises like walking, just like I said. Don't go for strenuous exercise in the beginning, no? As you are not yet as healthy as you would like, no? You might have a heart attack if you dive into aerobic exercises right away. So go slow, no? You can do yoga, you can do qigong, no? Or just ordinary brisk walking or walking leisurely, no? Practice meditation, breathing exercises, socialize, sleep, and supplement, no? These actually, yung breathing, socialization, and sleep can actually reduce stress, no? So when you are stressed, you get high levels of cortisol, stimulate insulin again, no? And supplementation help for those people that comes from a very poor diet that have conditions of hypertension, fatty liver. In the case-to-case basis, we can give supplementations depending on their individual conditions, no? But the basic type of supplementation that I give is actually a multivitamin, an omega-3, and a B vitamin supplement. And I highly recommend the NutriBlight brand. They are actually the pioneers in supplementation 80 plus years ago, and they started organic, you know. So this is actually the consensus report of ADA, published April 18, 2019. That we should emphasize on non-starchy vegetables, minimize added sugars, whole foods over highly processed foods, and reducing overall carbohydrate for individuals with diabetes has demonstrated the most evidence for improving blood sugar control. And this is the more current study, no? In the American Journal of American College of Cardiology released in 2020, that complex food matrix with high saturated fatty acid content, but also other nutrients and non-nutritive components, there is no increased cardiovascular death or diabetes risk. No? The message here is to not combine your fats with high carb, with refined foods, no, refined sugars, no, just like what we eat in fast food establishments. Bad combination of food, high carb with high fat, no, and mostly trans fat pa kasi use vegetable oils, no. And this is the kind of fats and oils that we should eat, no? Minimally processed foods, no? We should ditch the highly processed saturated fats from margarine, vegetable oils, no? Like canola, soybean oil, corn oil. We should take more of the good fats and lose these bad fats, no? Yung Krispy Kreme nyo, no? Your Mr. Donut, your Dunkin' Donuts, no? These are the bad fats. They are manufactured fats, no? The process involves highly processing, bleaching, extracting with solvents, no? And these good fats, they are minimally processed, no? Nature, as it says here, nature doesn't make bad fats, factories do. We should go back to eating real food, no? For those with type 2 diabetes and other conditions of the metabolic syndrome, we should actually go lower than 50 grams per day of carbohydrates. Eat less frequently, maximum of 3 meals, to reduce our insulin response, or at two meals a day, combined with a very low carb diet, and you get an insulin response. And this is my handout actually that I give to my patients. No, you can copy it. No, these are the allowed foods, no, and allowed drinks. And I actually recommend Nutrilite, no, as I said before, no, for supplementation due to its quality. And copy this. And this is the fasting protocol that I give. Go low carb. It's easier actually to go fasting when you avoid sugar. No? It's harder to fast when you are taking sugary or high carb diet. No? The craving involved. And when medication, it's especially advised to get medical supervision, no? Because of the dangers of hypoglycemia, very low blood sugar, and very low blood pressure, no? So you need to work with a physician that can guide you in reducing those medications as you improve. No? So it's strongly advised, no, to have medical supervision and proceed slowly. Study it first, no? Don't just dive in right away. For those who have no other medical issues, they can actually do it themselves, no? But study it first, no? Study it very well, no? From very well informed websites, no? I actually have a wellness page, no? And you need a strong why. These are the 3 things that you must have to stay consistently. This is not a fad. This should be a lifestyle. Because if you go back to your old habits, if you do this program and you get well, but if you go back to your old habits, the disease comes back. So you must be consistent, no? You need a strong why, no? In any endeavor, we need a strong reason to do it, no? And have positive reasons, just like what my patient has, no? Her strong reason is to be able to travel with her daughter, who is a nurse in Australia, no? She was actually a diagnosed diabetic, 11 years, no? And 9 years on insulin. In a matter of 3 months, we were able to discontinue all her medication, even insulin. Now she can go up and down her home, which has 4 floors, no, easily without getting tired, and she lost weight, no. So you need a strong why, no? And you need support, no. It's better to have a group than you're doing it alone to be in. So it's very important to have also an accountability meeting with your coach, with others like you, no? So you can support each other, no? And you need to have a goal a game plan, just like what we're going to discuss with you a little bit later. A game plan to get optimal health, and not just optimal health, but you can actually, with our business community, you can actually improve also in your to get optimal health and optimal self, just like just like what the program did to me. I actually improved. Before I used to be very shy in speaking in public, but because I have a message of hope to people that these conditions are reversible, I had to develop myself. This is actually my Facebook group. It's an exclusive group for my patients that I coach. I have a clinic in Marikina by appointment only. I also have a public wellness herald page. So thank you for listening. And I give you back to our MC.
Wow. Thank you very much, Doc Rico. That's a lot to ponder. That's very good. We need to start with ourselves, start with our lifestyle. Very, very good advice from Dr. Rico. Yeah, for the meantime, if you have any questions, I think we still have time. You can put in your questions on the chat box. But before we end, I think we have some announcements. Ryan, we have announcements or any other events from CCG Philippines?
Thank you so much, Dr. Rico. What you talked about is absolutely valuable to every one of us, whether you think that you've got hereditary traits, hereditary diseases, or because of lifestyle, you think that improving your health is a big concern. It's very important to learn about Syndrome X and how to be able to counter that through nutrition and better lifestyle habits. I do have something to promote, but before that, I want to show you some videos, or at least one video, about our health partner, Nutrilite. Nutrilite is the world's oldest and largest brand for supplementation. They have huge organic farms across North and South America. So as part of Dr. Rico's talk and advocacy to empower people in their health, we want to also educate people about responsible supplementation. And we think that Nutrilite is a very trustworthy and responsible partner for doing that because of their best practices and their traceability. So if I could just call on Elmira to play the video.
Organic farming is definitely the hardest form of agriculture. I love people, I love organic, and I love to work hard, which are kind of all the things that you really get in organic farming. Nutrilite's farming practices incorporate a farming system where we don't use pesticides or herbicides or any synthetic chemicals on the farm. We consider the farm a living organism, so everything that we do to the farm matters. Depending on what crop you're growing is going to depend on where you want to locate that crop. We have farms in Brazil, El Pedical, Mexico, and also 2 different farms in Washington State. They're placed in these different locations because we have different topography and different climates that allow us to grow the best plants for Nutrilite. We get to be involved in each process of growing the plant, harvesting the plant, and eventually sending the plant off for final processing. We document every step of the process. We call it the birth certificate of the plant. We're using technologies that not a lot of other organic farms are using, such as GPS technology and advanced tractor technologies in order to get cultivation closer to the plant to allow us to reduce the amount of hand weeding. We're working with all natural products. We're living a healthy lifestyle, and we're also creating a sustainable future.
Thank you, Brian.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that short video about Nutrilite. They have an amazing story behind how everything is made. And like what Dr. Rico was talking about, we have to go back to basics. We have to go back to nature and look at what we eat. And nobody has a perfect diet, as much as we want to eat salads 3 times a day and really try to do our best doing that. We believe that we have to supplement. And once again, Nutrilite is a great partner for that, to just add better nutrition to whatever you're having. I also want to wrap up with a follow up to Dr. Rico's talk. This is actually going to begin starting Sunday. Uh, what you watched right now is part of a bigger program which we call Syzygy Optimal Health. And nutrition, exercise, rest, all of these things are very important to having the best version of you, the best version of your health. And we're going to be covering the Optimal Health program this coming Sunday for Manila. Um, if you're watching this from a different time zone, well, we can help give you the schedule for that, but you can also watch it live or in replay on Facebook Live. The Optimal Health program is going to include consultation with Dr. Rico, because everyone's a little bit different in their health, in their health journey. But it's going to be a very holistic and sustainable program. It's not about crash diets. It's not about easy way out, instant soup. It's about changing the way that we live, and that's going to include looking at customized meal plans. There's also going to be an emphasis on real food and not quick substitutes, not junk food, definitely, and connection to a accountability group so that you can track your progress and um, have other people also be along you with the journey. So if you want to learn more about this is open to everybody. It's going to be this Sunday at 8 p.m. for the Philippines. And if you're watching from the US, just do the time conversion. If it's a bit early for you, there's Facebook Live again, or please just get back to the friend who invited you. This is a program that we are excited to roll out. We've been practicing this for even before the pandemic, but right now we feel that there is a strong need to empower others in optimal health. So come and join us, come and learn about this program. Let's be able to positively impact the lives of so many people out there who think that, well, I've always had diabetes. This is how I was. This is how I'll always be. Or heart disease has always been in our family. There is no way around that. We believe that there's always hope. So we'd love to see you there during our Optimal Health Talk on Sunday. So with that, thank you again, Dr. Rico. And back to you, Jeng, for anything else.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Well, I hope you have a lot of learnings today. Um, Thank you very much, and good evening to those who are here in the US, and good morning to those in the Philippines. Take care, everyone.